The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. From hot dogs to cool kitties, this is Darkside of the Pooch.
Dr. Rab Stewart, how are you?
I can't top that. You got the best dog noises. Sometimes
Pretty good, isn't it?
You are a dog.
You have to
Dirty dog.
You have to put a little spittle in the back of your throat, and then you get that little sound there, and it works pretty good.
Now I know why the ladies love you.
Yeah, that one hasn't worked as a pickup line yet, but I'm working on it. He's Dr. Rab Stewart from the Rossbridge Animal Hospital, Rossbridge Vet on Twitter, also the Rossbridge Animal Hospital on Facebook, and of course, this is called Darkside of the Pooch. He came up with that title. I could not have thought of a better name for the show, and of course, it's a picture of my blue heeler right in the middle of our graphic, so if you go to our social media, Tony Kurre Radio and TonyKurreRadio.net, you'll see that picture. We got some great stuff to get into today. We have a dog attack that I want to get into. We got some Mutt Mail. We'll talk about some cat nipples. I got a shoe chewing update that we got into last week. And also, Puxatani Phil saw a shadow this past week, and I want to talk about dogs and cats basically prognosticating the weather. So you ready to go?
Ready. Let's do it.
All right. So Texas college student working as a dog walker was permanently disfigured last month when two dogs pounced on her in a bloodthirsty attack. Jacqueline Claire Duran, 22, of Capoli, had just opened a home's front door on December 23rd to walk Lucy, a German Shepherd mixed breed, and Bender, a mixed breed pit bull, according to a lawsuit filed this past week. The animals were not in kennels and rushed at Duran, violently attacking her, the lawsuit said. Duran has undergone multiple operations since the mauling. It was so bad, they violently attacked her head and face, mauling her catastrophe. Well, they mauled her really, really bad. They were so violent and bloodthirsty. They pulled off her clothes, including her jeans. As a veterinarian, you obviously deal with a lot of animals, and they're at your place, so you can obviously see that. We've had shows about what happens when you have dogs that show teeth and growl at you, and I'm sure you've had that before. But explain to me how a dog walker who's walked these animals before, they know who she is, could attack her at the front door of a home. What's happening there?
It's terrible. Because, I mean, when people get attacked by dogs, they just don't get over it, Yeah. Sometimes physically, but emotionally, it just scars you. So that's just awful. But that was going to be my question, because the article didn't say. She routinely walked them?
Yeah, she walked them every single week. She showed up at the door, she opened the door, and they just came running through the door and attacked her.
I can't explain that. I mean, I assumed that this was a new deal, and they didn't introduce the dogs to her, and the dogs are really territorial over their house, and she just showed up thinking they were friendly dogs for the first time, and they went at her. I mean, I have no clue what would spark that. But I would bet that one of them was probably the one that initiated it, and then the other came in, and just smelled blood in the water. Because that happens a lot. You have one dog that is the main aggressor, and then once that gets going, it's like pack mentality. That's where that term came from.
Do even the kindest dogs do that? I had that happen with my Havanese. Remember, I brought my Havanese in and was attacked by the new dog, and then all of a sudden, my oldest dog got in the mix, and they started pulling it apart like a wishbone. What do dogs do that?
Yeah. It's just that this blood in the water, pack mentality, and when one goes, a lot of times others will jump on it where the others wouldn't have instigated it. I mean, I think people are the same way. I mean, people are, we're messed up. We're messed up, Yeah. And if you see two people fighting, all of a sudden, the next thing you know, there's 3 or 4 other people beating up whoever was fighting, beating up whoever's already getting beaten up.
That's a great point. We had a German Shepherd in our neighborhood that attacked its owner, of all people. He jumped through a plate glass window to get away from his German Shepherd. He didn't get rid of it. And from that point on, we had little girls in the neighborhood, and they'd want to come over and play with my sister, and I'd have to walk over to the house and walk them back to our house because they were afraid of being attacked by this German Shepherd. Can you talk about a little bit from a therapeutic standpoint? You're so right. That scars, and normally if a small child, a lot of times when kids run, dogs will run you down. And we had a St. Bernard in our neighborhood too. If you ran, that St. Bernard was going to hunt you down. It wasn't going to hurt you, but it was going to jump on you. Can you talk about that trauma that's associated with that?
I think that it tends to happen more in younger people because that may be the first experience they have with a dog.
Yeah.
Especially if they don't own a dog, and they don't know how great dogs can be and how loving and just love that is never, it's unconditional love, for most dogs.
Yeah.
But for people who don't experience that when they're a kid and their first experience is getting chased down or chomped on, you can forget it. I mean, they'll never have any other idea of what a dog can be other than that.
And that's sad. It's sad.
I think if you have a foundation, then you realize, okay, well, most dogs are really loving and this one dog was not. I can get past that. But if it's your first interaction with a dog, I think it's over.
Yeah. This past week, Puxadani Phil saw a shadow. That means 6 more weeks of winter. I always thought that was interesting because I figured if the sun's out, that means spring's around the corner, but it's just the opposite. Sally in Garden City brought this up. She said, that's so crazy that so many thousands of people show up in Pennsylvania to see this rat come out of a hole. She goes, but it is interesting how my dog can predict thunderstorms. She said an hour before it actually even thunders, my dog is freaking out. She also has horses that do the same thing. We've seen these stories about buffalo and all kinds of different animals in the animal world just act really sheepishly or weird whenever there's something catastrophic about ready to happen. Can you explain that? Why do animals do that?
I think it can be a few things. They can hear things way before we can hear them. Thunder out in the distance, dogs can hear it before we can. They just have a better sense of hearing. Number two, I think that they can feel things like changes in pressure or vibrations better than we can. So I think it's also part of that. They just feel it and hear it before we do.
Could it be
that's how they know.
Could it be a barometric pressure thing too, maybe?
Yeah, pressure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting because a lot of times when animals start acting strange, and I think that kind of goes for whenever you hear these stories about someone being murdered in a neighborhood and the dogs start barking unlike they've ever heard them bark before. You ever hear those stories?
Yeah.
You ever hear a dog bark? You're like, that doesn't sound right. That just sounds really bizarre. Sounds weird. It doesn't sound like a normal dog bark, and maybe they know more than what they're leading on to. So interesting. Dr. Rab Stewart from the Rossbridge Animal Hospital joins us every week. Noon and 8, Dark Side of the Moon. Fresh news shows every single Monday at noon and 8 right here on the Tony Kurre Radio app. And, of course, TonyKurreRadio.net. And coming soon to Spotify. You can go back and listen to, we got 60 different shows that we can play for Darkside of the Pooch. We do Mutt Mail every single week, too. Some more questions. Before we do that, though, I want to get into an update here. I mentioned my Rainer, my Australian Shepherd. I left the house for a few hours, had a neighbor come over, feed him, walk him, take care of him. When I got back, he was chewing one of my shoes. I'd never seen him do that, and I was like, we ain't going there. You said no problem unless he does it again. Well, it happened again this past week. I left for a couple hours. I'm even talking to my dogs. I'm explaining to them, hey, listen, Dad's got to go to work. I'll be back in a few hours. I'll take you for a walk afterwards, feed you. I give him belly rubs, and I walked out, and he chewed my other shoe. What do I need to do next?
Well, you can either kennel him, and some dogs are okay being in a kennel.
Will they realize being kenneled is a discipline, or are they just wondering why they're being caged up?
No, I mean, they'll either like it or they won't. I don't think that they'll associate it with a punishment. All you're doing at this point is just keeping him away from your stuff.
Yeah.
It's not like you're punishing him for what he did. You just don't want him to do it again. So I don't think that he will associate being in the kennel with a punishment.
Okay.
So you can put him in a kennel if he'll accept that, as long as he doesn't hurt himself or cause a lot of problems. Or you can try to medicate him. If he's super anxious and he's going to tear things up while you're gone, I mean, you can give him something to kind of take the edge off. But those are, really the only other options other than just getting everything picked up. But that's not possible. You can't, because if he's going to chew up a shoe, he's going to chew up the leg of a table.
Yeah.
And you can't possibly just get everything out of his way.
Do you have anybody or any of your customers that have cameras? I know a lot of people have nanny cameras, and there's Ring cameras now and everything else, and you could actually speak to them. Do those work? If you can check in on your pet while you're gone, can you talk to your animals? Will they know what's going on? Yeah.
Oh yeah, they work. There's I don't know the name of this thing, but I've had people, they'll show me a video, and it's it's a thing that dispenses treats in your house,
Oh, wow.
and it's got an app, and you can fire that thing up, the camera will turn on, and then it'll shoot the treats out in front of it, like I don't know, like 10 feet. So I'm sure you can like set a distance on it, and then you just see the dog run up in front of the camera and eat the treat. So I mean, yeah, clients have stuff like that, but you can put a Ring camera on anything, or these Ring home security systems, or there's all kind of stuff, you know.
I'd like to have one of those for Super Bowl Sunday. Just have those
Yeah.
shooting little baby pepperonis across the room. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, shoot a Dorito at me.
He's Dr. Rab Stewart, Rossbridge Vet on Twitter, Rossbridge Animal Hospital on Facebook as well. And, of course, you can hear the show at noon and 8, fresh new shows every Monday here, Darkside of the Pooch, exclusively on Tony Curry Radio. All right, let's get in some Mutt Mail here. This is a great question. I actually used this on another show a couple of weeks ago. I said, I'm busier than a cat trying to bury its poop on a marble floor. I got some chuckles out of that. Annie in Las Vegas wants to know, why do cats bury their poop?
Well, some dogs will do it too. It's not just cats, and I feel like it is just a cleanliness thing. That's it. They inherently want to keep their area free of smells and body fecal material or urine.
Yeah.
My dog tries to bury its poop. I mean, it doesn't go as far as a cat does.
Is that why they scratch the grass?
Yeah, afterwards. Yep. They're trying to cover it up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's instinctual. They don't want to be associated with that. And that's how potty training works. That's how crate training works, because pets don't like pee and poop. Well, most don't. I know that some dogs will run around in the woods and roll in poop, and people are wondering what the heck's going on. But most dogs don't want to deal with that. So when you're crate training, they learn they don't want to come in contact with the pee or the poop, and so they don't go in the kennel anymore. So it's just a cleanliness thing. They don't want to have to deal with it.
Yet a 3-month-old will lay in its own poop until you change its diaper. It doesn't say a word.
Yep. No. Okay.
Mutt Mail continues here. Steve in Huntsville just had a litter of kittens. He had 8 kittens. He wants to know, how many nipples does his cat have? He said he was trying to count how many nipples. That cat will bite you. He said, are there different number of nipples on cats, and do male cats have nipples?
Yeah. No, yeah. Male cats have nipples, and it kind of varies. I mean, I've seen cats have, like 12 nipples.
Really?
I've seen them have 10. Yeah. I've seen them have 12. I've seen them have 10. I've seen them have 8. So it can kind of vary. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know why, but it's, cats and dogs can have different numbers of toes too. It's called polydactyly, and it's not that uncommon. So, most dogs, when they're born, they'll have 5 digits on their front feet, and they'll, 5 on each foot, and then they'll have 4 on the back feet. So 4 on each foot on the back. But sometimes you'll have the little thumbs or the dew claws. A dog will have those on the back feet, where, normally they don't have them.
Yeah.
And then you have some breeds like cats. Like there was a cat that came in. It's it's not a specific breed, but that cat had 6 toes on both back feet, and it had 7 toes on both front feet.
Really?
It was unbelievable. But Great Pyrenees, so that's a dog breed. Great Pyrenees, the breed standard is that they're polydactyl, meaning they have more toes than they should. And they'll have the double dew claws on all 4 feet. So instead of having just a single dew claw on the front and back, they'll have 2. And that's the breed standard. I mean, that's supposed to be the case. It's wild.
Does that make an animal more agile with an extra digit? Obviously with a human being, it would be different, but I mean, does it make an animal better at running or better at attacking things?
Well, in the Great Pyrenees case, no, because the dew claws, they never come in contact with the ground, because they're higher up on the feet. So all they do is dangle. But in the cat that I'm talking about, the owner was pretty clever with the name. They named it Tomika.
Yeah.
Because it has so many toes. But that cat had that cat. It wasn't all just dew claws or dew digits.
Yeah.
It had extras on its the contact the ground. So I would think there's probably some benefit in that. There was some story recently. I think it was about a Kentucky wide receiver or tight end.
Yeah, I saw it.
And he's got 6 fingers.
He does, yes.
And so it makes it all like he can catch the ball way easier.
It's almost not fair. He goes to schools talking about this, and it looks normal. You have to look at it twice because it's not like just some stub coming out of it. It's his actual finger.
That's amazing.
It really is amazing. All right, so the question is, are cats born with a certain number of nipples? First of all, are they born with 12 nipples? And does it have anything to do with the fact that maybe they know how many kittens they're going to have in a litter, or no?
No, they're born with a certain number. But it doesn't have anything to do with how many kittens they're going to have. It's just, it's random.
And are there fake nipples, or they all give milk?
That kind of depends. I mean, I would think that they would all be functional.
Yeah.
But a lot of pets that we see, they end up not, having any offspring. So
Yeah.
we don't ever really know because we spay and neuter a lot of them.
That's really interesting. This is Mutt Mail here. Of course, we're doing Darkside. The Pooch goes on every Monday at noon and 8. Fresh new shows here with Dr. Rab Stewart. Check him out. He is wonderful. 208-0301, Rossbridge Vet on Twitter and Rossbridge Vet on Facebook. It's a fantastic show and some great Mutt Mail here. Tanya in Louisville, Kentucky wants to know why cats make that god-awful sound when they're mating.
I think because they're hurting each other. I really think, I do. I think it's painful for both of them. We've talked about this before, but male cats have spines on their penis, and it's to help kind of keep everything in place, because they're made to reproduce. And so, I think there's a level of pain that goes on, but if you've ever seen, 2 cats, in that position, they're biting each other and scratching each other. So I think that there's a little bit of pleasure spiked with pain to stay on the classic rock theme we have here with the chili peppers.
It is horrible. It is horrible to watch because it looks like they're killing each other.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I think it's a little bit of pain and a little bit of pleasure.
And I mean, we've all been there before where we actually thought someone left a crying baby outside your window at night. You think it sounds just like a crying baby, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it does. It's a sound that you wouldn't think would come out of 2 things that are supposedly having a good time.
Yeah.
But it does.
This is a perfect tangent for a story that I want to bring back up that we talked about a couple of years ago, because I had my Havanese and, of course, my little white dog. And we wanted them to mate because we thought they'd make beautiful puppies, and they did. But when he was getting after it, it was god-awful screeching sound. It was right there in the middle of our living room. And what I tried to do, I tried to pull them apart. I had Vaseline down there. I mean, I was doing everything to get Frisco Dog off Maxie, and I was calling you to get help. And I think you're out having dinner, and you're like, leave them alone. They're fine. It's the glandus bulbus. And I was like, or the bulbus glandus. I'm like, what are you talking about? Could you please explain how that works with dogs?
Yeah, dogs get what we call tied up, and that's what you want to happen. It's so weird. But so when the male mounts the female, he gets locked into position. Sometimes I don't know where. That's where the term doggy style came from. Okay, yeah. So that's how they're doing it.
Okay.
But then once the male is finished doing his thing, he steps over with his front feet, and he turns all the way around and kind of spins at the same time, so that they are like they're butt to butt. So he's still, locked into her. But that's how dogs get loose. And it looks like that the opposite of that is happening. It looks like that they're so intertwined that they're getting all wrapped up, yep, and they're never going to get loose. But that's the natural progression. And then so eventually all that blood that has rushed to the male dog's penis will eventually go away, and he'll be done, and they'll walk away from each other.
But you cannot pull them apart.
No, you don't want to.
No, but I mean, you couldn't. Yeah, you couldn't if you wanted to. Yeah.
No, it'd be very difficult and harmful, and probably you would get hurt more than the dogs because you would try to pull them apart and they would immediately try to rip your hands off.
Yeah.
Because it hurts them. So you just gotta you gotta let them do their thing, and then it'll eventually, they'll separate. And that's how you know that's for a lot of people that are trying to breed their dogs. That's how you know that there was an ejaculation, because you'll say, okay, did they tie up? Did they get butt to butt? And dogs know they just naturally know when it's time to get together to make babies.
Yeah.
And most of the time, if you see two dogs that have tied up, there's a very, very good chance that you're going to have a pregnant dog. It's not like us where, a lot of times it may not take. Dogs are pretty efficient.
Yeah, it is incredibly uncomfortable to watch, and knowing that now at the time you were like, leave them alone, and I was like texting you, and I was like, where are you? Please call me. I thought it was horrible, and then realizing what I was doing, I was ruining a beautiful moment for my two dogs. I felt horrible. I was down there with a can of Vaseline trying to pull them apart, and I was like, what am I doing here? And it was horrible. It was terrible.
Now, if you had a Facebook Live of you doing that, you'd be famous or infamous, or I don't know what you would be, but it would be unbelievable.
That would be some great Facebook Live for sure. Jacob in Aniana wants to know what her dog, or actually his dog, is dreaming about. He says almost every single night his dog is dreaming. Its paws are moving. It sounds like it's yelping. It doesn't look like it's having a nightmare, but it dreams like all the time. Are there reasons why dogs dream? Is it just like humans? And what do you think dogs dream about?
Well, I think they're dreaming about running and playing, chasing stuff, because my dog does the same thing, and every dog I've ever had does it. I had one that did it worse than anyone else, and any other dog I've had, and it was a Weimaraner. And you would swear that she was having some kind of seizure. She wasn't, but all four paws would be twitching, and she'd be barking. But the way that you can tell this is a dream is you can call their name or make a noise, and they snap out of it and look at you.
Yeah.
If you have a dog that you feel like is having seizure activity and you call their name, they don't come out of it. So that's how you know if they're dreaming or if they have something wrong. Because if they're dreaming, they won't. If they're having a seizure, they're not cognizant and they can't respond. But I think when dogs do that in their dream, they're running and playing, and or maybe they're chasing a bad guy. I don't know.
Sometimes I'll say, "Get the squirrel," and they'll get after it for like another 3 or 4 minutes. I think it's hilarious. It's great. All right, Manny in Mobile, and this is a common question, but we've never asked it on this show. Why do dogs' ears and their feet smell like Fritos?
Oh, it's probably got a yeast infection.
Really?
Yeah, they're not supposed to smell that way. And ears and feet are really common places where dogs get yeast infections. Yeast infections are usually brought on by something else, and usually it's allergies. So the dog is itchy on his feet, and they're licking their feet. So I would bet that this dog licks on its feet a lot. So because you have the moisture from the mouth and just the irritation of the tongue, that breaks down the superficial skin barrier that's microscopic. You'd never be able to tell by looking.
Yeah.
And so the yeast grow in that environment. Same thing goes with the ears. The ears are prone to retain moisture, and it's just a warm environment, kind of like the feet are. And so you get yeast in there, and that's giving off that smell. So I would bet that the dog is probably, it's not 100%, but I would bet the dog is doing some foot licking and some shaking of the head and pawing around the head or neck area.
Yeah.
So he probably wants to get that dog looked at, see if it's got a yeast infection, and treat the yeast infection, and then see if there's an underlying issue that keeps the dog from getting the infection.
I don't know if I'll ever be able to eat Fritos again now that I know that it smells like a yeast infection, man.
Yeah, there you go. You're just eating yeast crusts.
That's disgusting. I love that. So the other thing about the dog ears, I think it's interesting because whenever I see my dog stick his foot in his ear, and it seems like he really enjoys it or it feels good, but he's also kind of crying a little bit, that's probably an ear infection. Normally what I'll do is I'll get somewhat of a towel or something and just wipe the inside of the ear, and if it comes out with some brown stuff on it, I know there's probably an issue. Yes or no?
Sometimes, but you can have it. So ear infections usually start and the ears are really not that dirty, okay. But then the yeast and the bacteria, they cause a response by the body. And so there's going to be a lot of debris in there. And so you can clean the debris out, but the infection is still going to be in there.
Gotcha.
And then a day or so later, you're going to be right back where you started. And so people don't understand. I clean my dog's ears out. I don't see how he's getting all this dirt down in his ear. Well, it's not dirt.
Yeah.
It's the body's response to infection.
Gotcha. Anything new and exciting happened at Rossbridge Animal Hospital you want to share with us?
I took off a massive tumor today.
Oh no.
Massive.
Explain. Where was it? What happened?
Oh, it was this dog had squamous cell carcinoma on its belly. And, the owner just did, it grew fast. And by the time he could take care of it, it was huge. I mean, it was like, as big as the top of my head,
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it was massive. I mean, it was, it was raised off the skin, maybe 2 inches.
Wow.
But as far as like its diameter, I mean, it was the diameter of a cantaloupe. So
Wow.
it was a massive tumor. So we removed that today, and the dog had to get a couple of blood transfusions just because, it's a bloody tumor.
Yeah.
So it was a wild one.
But the animal's going to be okay?
So far, so good. But you got to give it a couple days to be sure that the incision's not going to open up. When you mess around with angry tissue, you try to get all that out of there, but microscopically, you don't know until you send the tumor off. So sometimes you mess with angry tissue, it doesn't heal right.
Yeah.
And then anytime you're giving blood transfusions, the dog has the possibility of rejecting that blood. So you just got to get a few days out and keep your fingers crossed.
Always an amazing show. Darkside the Pooch. You can find him at Animal Hospital, the Rossbridge Animal Hospital, Rossbridge Vet on Twitter, as well as Rossbridge Animal Hospital right there on Facebook. Your number is 205-208-0301, 208-0301. Until next week, my friend, thank you so much for all the wonderful information and stories.
Thanks, man. Enjoy it as always.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.